Hey, today I'm talking about 3 Matthew Perry films, and the names of those 3 movies are 3 to Tango, 17 Again, and Almost Heroes. First up is 3 to Tango. This is a 1999 rom-com starring Matthew Perry and Neve Campbell and a bunch of other actors that you'd recognize from the 90s. And the basic premise is, do you remember that recurring joke on Friends where everyone kept assuming that Chandler Bing was gay, even though he wasn't? Well, they took that idea and expanded it into an entire movie. It's pretty good. I honestly enjoy this a lot. So before I kind of get into the movie itself, we need to talk about the premise, because I know a lot of people have issue with that recurring joke on Friends. I mean, like, as a kid, I thought that joke was fun and funny, and as an adult, I can definitely understand how and why people would have problems with it. But while watching this movie, I feel like they handled it really well. Like, there's a number of gay characters in the movie, and they talk about all of the different aspects of this silly, ridiculous misunderstanding. What really worked for me is that he immediately told people that he's not gay. Once he found out that people are assuming that he's gay, he's like, I'm not gay. And then continued to try to tell people that he was not gay, but still not getting believed. And then it got to the point where they couldn't back down from it because of how ridiculously crazy their boss was and all the circumstances of the film. So I feel like it worked. I feel like even though it is kind of a problematic premise, I personally feel like they handled it in a way that, even though it is still ridiculous, they justified it. I mean, they were able to work with it, work within the confines to make it feel sort of realistic in an absurdist way. But yeah, no, I had lots of fun with this. It was really funny and cute. With rom-coms, the main thing that I'm looking for is, do I believe the chemistry between the 2 leads? And yeah, there's lots of chemistry there. And I really love too that it's not just like, oh, 2 attractive people see each other and they fall madly in love. No, there's reasons that they're into each other about their personality and their interests and just how receptive they are to each other. I really feel it works. It's fun, it's funny, it's cute. So I would totally recommend it if you don't think you're going to be offended by the premise. You already know if you're offended by it or not. So if you are, don't watch the movie, you're just going to get annoyed. But if you think that it sounds like a fun, interesting premise, I would totally recommend this movie. It's a good, fun, cute little movie. Next up is 17 Again. This is a 2009 movie starring Zac Efron, Leslie Mann, and again, a bunch of people that you would know. And the basic premise is, when Matthew Perry was young and hot as Zac Efron, he was a star athlete until he got his girlfriend pregnant, and then he decided to drop out of basketball and become a father, but then he resents his life and becomes a bad dad. But then he wishes to become a 17-year-old again, so in modern times, he magically becomes a 17-year-old and basically does like a Mrs. Doubtfire type of situation where he befriends his children and re-falls in love with his wife. And it's fine. I remember when this came out and I just had zero desire to go see it because I was not on the High School Musical bandwagon. I think this was a well-casted film, and I think the actors did good for what they had. And honestly, I feel like the script itself isn't bad, and it almost feels to me that the original script was better, but then the wrong people got involved in the film, like behind the scenes people. It was the wrong director or the wrong executive, and they meddled with the story too much and kind of took out some of the heart, but then also added in weird absurdist things. Like, a good example is his best friend character, whose story they naturally included. He pretends to be his dad when he's a child again, and then the fake dad has a storyline with the principal where he's trying to date her. But he's such a cartoon of a character. He's a nerd in a way that a non-nerd would write a nerd. And it's just absurd and ridiculous, and I don't care for it. And it just feels like there's stuff like that. It's not quite right. It doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the story. That's why I think there was some third-party meddling. I still liked it though. It was cute. It was fun. Zac Efron's really good at basketball, so that was entertaining. It's always nice to see Leslie Mann. It wasn't bad. So I would say, like, if you've watched Mrs. Doubtfire too many times, but you want something that's a similar vibe, sure, give it a watch. It's definitely not a bad movie. So in general too, I'd recommend it. Though, like, not a high recommend. It's just kind of like, you want some nice little noise? This is a nice little noise. And lastly is Almost Heroes. This is a 1998 period comedy starring Chris Farley and Matthew Perry. And the basic premise is everyone knows about Lewis and Clark, but it turns out there was another expedition at the same time who were racing against them to the West Coast. And that's our heroes. Frilly rich man, played by Matthew Perry, and loud, obnoxious frontiersman, Chris Farley. And it's all right. I like the premise enough. It's an interesting premise, and I think casting Matthew Perry as this high society frilly person was good. He was fun in the role. And Chris Farley, who I do like, did good here. He kind of went a bit off the rails at times, but he was pleasant enough to watch. I don't know, I think my main issue with this movie is that it just didn't do enough with the premise. Like, it just wasn't that interesting of a story. It is a comedy, but I don't think they really played with the comedy enough. It kind of more so just felt like a standard frontier life movie with like a little bit of humor, which sucks because they just have a very standard plot. And so since they're not really injecting a lot of comedy into it, there's just not a lot to this movie then, since it's just so like boilerplate. I didn't hate this movie. I did like it. I did enjoy it. Eugene Levy's in this movie and he's always great. I think adding more women to the story probably would have helped to give more dynamic to it. But yeah, it was okay. Do I recommend it? Nah. There's other better Chris Farley movies and there's other better Matthew Perry movies, so it wasn't bad, but it's skippable. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got 3 to Tango, sitting at number 67 in the really like section. And then after that is 17 again, sitting at number 159 in the liked section. And then bringing up the rear is Almost Hero, sitting at number 209 in the meh section. And this is at a total of 240 old movies so far this year.